Pranam Mukherjee, Interim Budget 2009, extended the interest subvention scheme to allow exporters to receive pre- and post-shipment credit. This was to help battle global recession at the time. The government also claims that the steps that they've taken at the moment are because they are in the larger interests of the economy. The farmers needed support. The middle classes needed support. We have put cash in the hands of people. This will trigger consumer demand. They've put it within the wider context of the national interest.
Everything, of course, is in the national interest. People will have to decide whether it's in their interest. The farmers of this country will decide whether a measly sum of 17 rupees per day per family of a farmer is in the national interest, or is it throwing crumbs at the farmers?
Isn't that a bit unfair? When you come to 17 rupees a day,
it is true.
I mean, you have effectively for the longest time said this government is ignoring the farmer. But now the government comes and says we are going to give 6,000 rupees per year to farmers owning less than 2 hectares of land, and you said 6,000 is not enough, it's only 17 rupees a day.
If you want to believe Mr. Goel, they've already given 2,000 rupees from December 1, 2018. How that miracle was achieved?
They're saying they'll give it retrospectively. They are saying they will give it in 3 installments.
I want to ask you,
starting retrospectively.
I want to ask you, listen, I want to understand this. How can you give retrospectively? You have not given it. What is giving it retrospectively? You can only give it tomorrow.
They will give it before the code of conduct kicks in.
Therefore, why did you have to mention December 1? What is the relevance? You could have said, I'm giving it on 1st February. Why did you have to mention December 1? They're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the Election Commission. This is a scheme which came into effect on December 1. Did it? I mean, I'm sorry to use strong language. It's a lie, a blatant lie to say the scheme came into force on December 1. Did they announce it on December 1? Where did they get the date December 1, I want to know. Nobody's got an answer to that. You say 1st February, I have no quarrel.
How will you respond to those who will say that this is nitpicking? That the Congress is, nitpicking in the sense when you say 17 rupees a day.
That's true.
When you say that, why have you backdated it to December 1? The government will say, here is the opposition, which for the longest time has been telling us, you need to do something for the farmer. We go ahead and give a 75,000 crore bonanza. The government now, the opposition comes and says, it's too little, too late.
It is. Ashok Gulati has said in an article, a signed article today, the exact words you're using. Too little, too late. You have allowed the farmers very, very minimum MSP for 4 years. You try to make it up in the last year. There's no procurement machinery in many of the states, and these are mainly BJP ruled states, but there are other party ruled states. Prices of products have crashed, onions for example. You extract from the farmer, I saw a calculation which said 24,000 rupees on an average farmer, fertilizer prices, seed prices, electricity, diesel, harvest cost, and farm labor wages. They worked out a calculation and say on average a farmer has suffered an additional burden of 24,000 rupees per year, and you say I'll give 6,000 rupees a year?
Where will that 24,000 rupees come from? What would the Congress have done differently to assuage the need of the farmer? You've come to power in 3 states. What was the first thing you did? We are waiving off loans. Surely that is also no solution.
That is not a solution, but that is imperative. As I've said repeatedly, farm loan waivers are contextual and state-specific. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan said that. If the average debt of a farmer today, 90,000 rupees, how will he ever repay the debt? He has sunk into debt deeper and deeper over the last 5 years, or even say longer. Someday somebody has to relieve him of that debt, clean the slate, so that we can start doing institutional and structural reforms. As long as the farmer is under a debt burden of 90,000 rupees, it is absolutely necessary, imperative I'll say, that that debt be wiped out, which is what our state governments have done, which is what Maharashtra attempted to do under the BJP government. But don't pit loan waiver versus institutional structural reforms. They're not antithetical to each other.
No, You know, institutional structural reforms is a nice word you use, because you quoted Ashok Gulati's article just now saying it's too little too late, says the premier agriculture economist in the country. Next to that was an article by your friend Dr. Surjit Bhalla, who was once a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, who believes this budget is revolutionary because the direct cash transfer, he sees these 6,000 rupees that are going to be provided as a form of direct cash transfer, which he feels are far better than the previous SOPs that have been handed, according to him, under the Congress and the UPA scheme.
Who started DBT?
Direct
the idea
benefit
of DBT
transfer
was started by the UPA. We announced DBT. We started with scholarships, ASHA worker payments. We introduced it for LPG and rolled out a pilot. So don't tell us about DBT. We are the authors of DBT. And in fact, we coined even in a Hindi phrase, aapka paisa, aapka haath or something. Therefore, DBT was our idea. You have taken that idea forward. You have transferred more benefits to DBT. I have no quarrel with that. I have no quarrel with the idea of DBT. Our minimum income guarantee will also use the DBT model.
You know, interesting you're mentioning minimum income guarantee, because that suddenly MIG, if I may call it, has suddenly become your sort of answer, dare I say.
Don't even compare the two.
To the possibility that you knew that the Prime Minister was going to make a big ticket announcement in the interim budget 3 days before Rahul Gandhi makes the announcement. You, when I interviewed you earlier this week, were not even willing to spell it out. Obviously, has the party thought it through? You're in charge of the manifesto committee, or was that an announcement made simply somehow to preempt the BJP from its so-called surgical strike?
Firstly, this is not a big ticket announcement. This is a measly announcement. Secondly, are you accusing me of stealing the budget secret? I mean, this is rubbish. We have thought it through. We have been thinking it through. We've had meetings with economists. And this idea of a quasi-UBI or an adapted UBI has been discussed for the last several weeks, maybe a little longer. And then we decided that the Congress president will, on a suitable occasion, I did not know he was going to do that day, on a suitable occasion make an announcement that we are not going to stop with loan waiver. Look at the context. He was going to Chhattisgarh, addressing a farmers' rally. The farmers' rally was to thank the government for doing a loan waiver. But he said, we are not stopping at loan waiver. What I argued a little earlier.
Yes.
We are not stopping at loan waiver. We are going far beyond loan waiver. We are going to ensure that a minimum income guarantee for all the poor of India.
How is what you're planning or what you announced different from what the government has already made a first step? The Prime Minister says this is only a trailer.
Very different.
He says this is only a trailer, Mr. Chidambaram.
Very different.
You will see much more in terms of cash transfers, and we've seen some of it with Raitu Bandhu with Chandrasekhar Rao's government in Telangana, Kalia now with Naveen Patnaik's government in Odisha. This cash transfers is the flavor of the season.
It's more neat, it's more efficient. By the way, there are pluses and minuses to every scheme. Point is, what they've announced is so small, such a pittance, it won't make impact, number one. Number two, both Raitu Bandhu and what they have said will go to the owner farmer. It'll also go to the absentee landlord. It will not go to the tenant farmer. It will not go to the Khet Mazdoor, the farm labor.
Or the sharecropper.
The sharecropper,
Yes.
tenant farmer.
Yes.
Sharecropper is tenant farmer.
Yes.
Therefore, there are 4 kinds of farmers: owner farmer, absentee landlord, tenant farmer, and the Khet Mazdoor, the farm labor. Only 2 are taken care of. The other 2 are not taken care of. Besides, there are non-farm poor in rural India. Carpenter, tailor, street vendor, hawker, goldsmith, blacksmith, non-farm poor. Then there's urban poor. Your scheme does not deal with any of these categories, whereas the minimum income guarantee is for all poor families, farm and non-farm, urban and rural.
Let me for a moment then, since we are talking about the minimum income guarantee, ask you, is this now about competitive populism?
No.
As we build up into elections of 2019, in a sense, as the NDA is claiming, they've got the Josh and they've hit a sixer. They claim a triple sixer. One is they've tackled the neo-middle class by giving various tax breaks. Tax rebate now goes up to 5 lakh income. They've given various benefits to unorganized sector in terms of pension benefits. They claim, no, it is...
You're not willing to analyze it, that's the problem.
No, you tell me, for example, the pension scheme for the unorganized labor.
Please, they had a similar scheme 2 budgets ago. Have they junked it? The minister didn't say anything about that, but I understand they've junked it. There is no provision for that scheme anymore, and they've announced a new scheme and provided 500 crore rupees. So you announce one scheme 2 years ago, you junk it and announce another scheme, and you think that people's memories are shot, they won't remember what you said 2 years ago. Therefore, when the analysis takes place, when these things begin to unravel, people will know the difference between a jumla and a genuine promise.
These are large constituencies. They claim in the budget, farmers, small farmers, 12 crores will be benefited. Middle class tax breaks, which they are claiming will account for 3 crores, and unorganized sector labor around 10 crores.
So they've already won the election according to you.
They are claiming that. Ab ki baar 400 par, 400, they are going to cross 400. My point is,
claim it.
My point is,
they claimed it in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan also, that they're going to win by a thumping majority.
Well, you know, I sense overconfidence possibly on their side, but I sense within you also a sense that none of these steps in your view will have any impact on the voter. At the end of the day, aren't you all both the major parties in the next few months simply targeting the voter through some kind of soft? And if you say that this hasn't been done by previous governments and it's an end of... All state governments, Karnataka, you had an election last year, your government does it.
Answering for me? I'll answer your question.
Tamil Nadu, your state,
I'll answer your question.
has done in the past various handouts.
If your questions can be short, there can be some answers. I am not disputing the right of a government to do political messaging, but I'm entitled to point out how the message is full of holes, how the message is not intended or cannot be intended to deliver the benefit it claims to deliver. That's all I'm saying. I'm willing to take scheme by scheme and point out the pluses and minuses and let the people decide. I have no quarrel with their right to political messaging.
As the author of the Dream Budget in 1996, which brought down rationalized tax rates, would you support what the government has done in terms of the tax breaks that they've been giving?
I would examine all options. There were 2 options at least. One was to increase the rebate, one was to revise the tax slabs. In 1997 budget, I revised the tax slabs. That has stood the ground for nearly 20 years or so. Those tax slabs which are announced. Then the rebate idea was suggested. We start 2,500 rupee rebate. They've raised it to 12,500. Now, if another party is in government or other parties are in government, they will sit down and weigh all the options. What I find fault is not that you have chosen one option. You should have chosen one of these options in the first 5 years of your government. You can't do it in the 6th year and make it clumsy for the next government to choose another option. Suppose there is a better option. You'll have to annul these amendments and then amend the Income Tax Act again. Isn't that a clumsy way of doing things in the middle of a year? That is not right. Therefore, you do whatever you want to do, whichever option you want to take, rebate option, tax slabs option. There is another one known as paid tax credit. There are many options are there. You choose any one of those options and try it out in the first 5 years of your government, not in the last year when you have no business to be doing that.
You know, as you said, the speech has